واشدد على العزيمة جوانه وهب لي الجد في خشيته والدوام في الاتصال بخدمته حتى أسرع إليك في ميادين السابقين وأسرع إليك في البارزين واشتاق إلى غربك في المشتاقين وأدنو منك دنو المخلصين وأخافك مخافة المؤمنين واجتمع في جوارك مع المؤمنين. اللهم ومن أرادني بسوء فأرد ومن كادني فكد واجعل لي من أحسن عبيدك نصيبا عندك وأقربهم منزلة مني وأخصم زلفة لدي فإنه لا ينال ذلك إلا بفضلي وجد لي بجودي واعتف علي بمجدي واحفظني برحمتك واجعل لساني بذكرك لهجا وقلبي بحبك متيما ومن علي بحسن إجابتي وأقلني عثرتي واغفر زلتي فإنك قضيت على عبادك بعبادتي وأمرتهم بدعائي وضمنت لهم الإجابة فإليك يا رب نصبت وجهي وإليك يا رب مددت يدي فبعزتك استجب لي دعائي وبلغني مناي ولا تقطع من فضلك رجائي وكفني شر الجن والإنس من أعدائي يا سريع الرضا يا سريع الرضا اغفر لمن لا يملك إلا الدعاء فإنك فعال لما تشاء يا من اسمه دواء وذكره شفاء وطاعته غناء ارحم من رأس ماله الرجاء وسلاحه البكاء يا سابق النعم يا دافع النقم يا نور المستوحشين في الظلم يا عالما لا يعلم صل على محمد وآل محمد وفعل بما أنت أهله وصلى الله على رسوله والأئمة الميامين من آله وسلم تسليما كثيرا كثيرا. Inshallah, we're going to recite 5 times Amir-Ajib. There are, as you know, everywhere, especially, back in Middle East, there are people in need of dua everywhere in the world, inshallah, and they're asking for Amir-Ajib. Inshallah, we will recite that. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم أمن يجيب المضطر إذا دعاه ويكشف السوء أمن أمن يجيب المضطر إذا دعاه ويكشف. اللهم نور قلوبنا بنور القرآن، نور قلوبنا بنور الإيمان، نور قلوبنا بنور معرفتك. اللهم احينا حياة محمد وآل محمد، وأمتنا ممات محمد وآل محمد، ولا تفرق بيننا وبين محمد وآل محمد. اللهم عجل لبليك الفرج، اللهم اشف كل مريض، اللهم اشف كل مريض، اللهم عجل لبليك الفرج. رحم الله من يقرأ الفاتحة مع الإخلاص. For all those who used to be with us, your loved ones, you can think of anyone, especially those who sponsor program. As I mentioned earlier, tonight's program is SABA for Marhum, is on his 49th anniversary. I say that because, like I said, I admire the family, the brothers of Kazemi, Marhum Hajj Abdul Rasul Kazemi, and all your Marhumi. Rahim Allah man yaqra al-Fatiha ma al-Ikhlas wa salawat. Oh, take all things.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. لا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم. وصلى الله على محمد وآله الطاهرين. Before we begin the presentation for this evening, I want to request a Surah Al-Fatiha for the marhumin of the sponsors of tonight's program, in particular Marhum Muhammad Yasin Sheikh, Safiya Begum, Khurshid Ali, Wazir Begum, and for Marhum Kazemi, the one that Hussein Falati mentioned, and for the marhumin of all those who are present at tonight's gathering and all the volunteers. Please let us gift them the recitation of a Surah Al-Fatiha after a salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Also, Sayyid Raad requested me to make a pitch to encourage all of you to join or to consider applying to join the vacant positions that are present on both the OMC board, the Operation Management Committee board, and also the Board of Trustees. This is an opportunity to get involved and to, inshallah, make a difference and to serve Allah by serving the community and bringing your talent, your ideas, and your energy and your time, and giving that as a way of helping, inshallah, the community flourish, and especially our younger generations. So for all those who are interested and who are able, please go ahead and apply. Until now, there's been very few people who have actually applied for the open positions, so they are humbly requesting that more people consider this, and they consider giving this type of donation. You know, there's one time when we donate our extra money, but sometimes donating our time can be much more valuable. So this is a request that's coming from the board members to all of you. The deadline for the application is April 24th, and on May 2nd, inshallah, there will be the general body meeting in which the next set of OMC members and trustees are elected. Did I do a good job? Yeah? Okay, good. So next time I'll charge a fee for that pitch. Okay, okay, this is joking. Okay. Salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Okay, so we're going to continue our series, inshallah. As I mentioned last week, we're trying to do things in a bit more of a structured format, where we're trying to learn kind of on a lesson by lesson. And so we're trying to put a little bit more effort into making slides, choosing topics, and presenting it in a way where hopefully it's going to be more educational and will benefit all from these efforts. The request that we have is that we tried for this short amount of time that we're going to be doing this, that if we can keep the hall relatively quiet so that everyone can inshallah listen and learn and benefit and interact. And if people do wish to converse, there are alhamdulillah lots of spaces outside of these two halls where they can have those conversations. So before we continue with the Shia belief defense part of it, I want to just review a couple of Islamic laws that I think are very relevant, and I felt it was necessary for me to do that. The first one has to do with what happens when there's an earthquake. I think many of you probably felt the earthquake this morning. Yes? Okay. So some people didn't. Some people felt it and then they did Salatul Ayat. Some people felt it and they went back to sleep. Some people didn't feel it and they found out afterwards. But I think everyone kind of was aware of it because it was something that was more impactful and it was longer. It felt like it was longer. So just a quick review. These are according to the rules of Ayatollah Sistani, Hafidahullah. According to his rules, first of all, the prayer of Salatul Ayat begins immediately when the earthquake is felt. That's when the obligation begins. And in Arabic, it's called the zaman, the time, which is muttasil, which is connected to the actual event that takes place. Now, obviously, if there's a dangerous situation and you're concerned about your health or your family members, you have to first get safe. It's not that like your ceiling is collapsing and Allah wants you to do the prayer right there while the ceiling falls on your head. No, get safe, right? When the danger has passed, at that time, once everyone's accounted for, then you can take that wudu and go and do the Salatul Ayat. The prayer must be immediate, quote unquote, meaning that it shouldn't be delayed. Now, what does it mean to be delayed? Think about this timeline right here. You have the earthquake, you have the time which is connected, az-zaman al-muttasil, the time that is connected to it, and then when the time passes is when the time is gone. Okay, then it's late. Okay, so it's what the wajib window is right here. According to Ayatul Islamic, the wajib window is here. Here, it's no longer wajib. So question, does that mean that if I just wait it out until the wajib window passes, then it's no longer wajib, meaning I don't have to do it? The answer is yes, but if we do that on purpose, then we've committed a sin. Because there was something that was wajib on us and we didn't do it in the time that we should have. So in order to avoid committing that sin, if we're aware of this taking place, we should do it in the time which is connected to the earthquake, not after that time. Now, what does it mean to do it in the connected time? Are we talking about like 2 minutes afterwards, 5 minutes afterwards, 15 minutes afterwards? This depends on what's normally considered as connected to an event. So roughly speaking, within 30 to 60 minutes later, it should be performed. Okay? Now, if somebody doesn't do it in that time and we get to the time passes area, that's when we have to do istighfar. Okay, because now we've committed a sin, but it's no longer wajib. Let's say that somebody didn't do it, but they still want to do it. Can they still do it? Yes, according to Adul Sistani, they can do it on the basis of precaution, ihtiyat. In that case, their intention would not be doing it out of ada or qada. It wouldn't be that you're doing it because it's time to do it, or that it's qada. You're just doing it out of ihtiyat. And of course, there are some exceptions. If, depending on somebody's situation, then they would be exempted from having to do the Salatul Ayat. Okay? I hope that's clear, inshallah. The viewpoints of other Maraja may differ. The viewpoint of Shaheed Ayatollah Khamenei was that when it came to if somebody didn't do it during the time, the connected time, it would still be wajib on them to make it up qada. And they would, at any time, they would have to do it. So they found out afterwards there was an earthquake, they would still have to do it at some point later on. But Ayatollah Sistani says that if the time has passed, then it's no longer wajib to do the salah. I hope that's clear, inshallah. And then similarly, there's another question that comes up about when there's an eclipse and what happens if somebody misses the Salatul Ayat if there's an eclipse. But I think given time, I don't want to use all of our time for this. Inshallah, maybe next week or next time we have an opportunity, we'll cover the rules for what happens when it's qada if there's an eclipse. Okay, so let's go to our topic. Our topic was about this shadowy, mysterious, mystical figure named Abdullah ibn Saba. Supposedly, he existed at a time where he was very instrumental in creating divisions among the Muslims. And he was responsible for planning the assassination of the Khalifa, the third Khalifa, and for starting the first civil war of Jamal. And he was also the one who supposedly, the claim is that he invented the doctrines of Shia Islam. Okay, he was the one who decided that we should have this group called Shias. That's what they say. But some people say that. Last week I explained that it's important for us to be able to defend against this. Not that we're doing this so that we can create more divisions and we can say that, we're Shias and Sunnis are all wrong. No, this is not the time to be focused on sectarianism. This is the time actually where we find that, alhamdulillah, there's a lot of positivity in this regard where Shias and Sunnis are putting aside, minor differences for the greater cause. But at the same time, we want to make sure that we are firm and we are strong in our identity and we're proud of who we are. Alhamdulillah, we have been gifted with this madhab and we want to be able to defend with logical. It's not about personal attacks. It's through logic, through goodwill, through references, right? And we say, this is our evidence. If you have evidence, you can bring it. Let's discuss with that type of spirit. So that's the kind of, with dialogue spirit, not of attacking and shaming and naming and trying to create divisions. Now, who was the one who mostly talks about this person named Abdullah ibn Saba? It's somebody named Saif ibn Umar. I talked about this last time. And he's the one who's famous for bringing names of people and names of places that no one else talks about. And he creates these events which are very fantastical and mystical. He also created the legend of Abdullah ibn Saba doing all these types of things. So when we know that the person who narrates these things is somebody who's a tailor, he spins tales and he spins stories, then of course we're going to take what he says with a huge grain of salt. We're not going to just listen to it and say that, okay, we're going to believe everything that he says. We talked about that last time. And there's all these things that are said about Ibn Saba. We talked about that last time. Now let's go on. This is a bit of history. This is important. So Saif ibn Umar, he invents this narrative. Why? Because he wants to clear certain people of blame. Right? Sometimes, there's people who do terrible crimes, and it happens even in today's world too. They do horrible things. And there's people who want to whitewash those crimes. They want to make it seem like they didn't do it. Saif ibn Umar was one of these people. He thought by spinning these tales and these stories, he could change history by saying that these companions didn't commit the crimes that they did. At-Tabari, who writes this very important and very widely referenced book on history, the history of the kings and the kingdoms, it's very well known. It's been translated in English as well. He lived in this time period, 224 to 310. He just copies down everything that he hears, including the stuff that he heard from Saif ibn Umar as well. He just writes everything down in his books. Later on, other historians, they copy what At-Tabari says, and then finally we get to somebody named Ibn Taymiyyah. Ibn Taymiyyah, in the 7th and 8th century, he takes this and he makes it as if it's a fact. He says that, look, I'm the expert on this issue. I'm telling you that everything this guy, Saif ibn Umar, said is correct. And what he said was that, astaghfirullah, Shia Islam is an invention of somebody named Abdullah ibn Saba. This is kind of what happened in history. That's why, Ibn Taymiyyah is the person that the Wahhabis really love him. Right? They go to his teachings. They consider him to be like their ideological father, right? And they quote his book, Minhaj al-Sunnah, and they really love him. So they say that this is his viewpoint about Shia Islam, and therefore it's our viewpoint as well. That's why you find that in particular, the Wahhabis are the one who bring up this thing. It's not a new thing of this fabrication of Shias was started by this man. Now, why did he do this? Why did he do this? This is really important here. This is a picture of a pressure valve. Okay, so you have pressure coming from both sides. When you have pressure coming from both sides, you need to release that pressure. What's the pressure here? The pressure here is that on one hand, the Sunni doctrine, typical Sunni doctrine, is that all the companions were righteous, they didn't commit sins, and everyone agreed on everything that happened at the beginning of Islam. That's one thing that they say. The other thing that they say that is in history, there was companions who fought bloody civil wars. They assassinated the Khalifa, right? And they killed, there was bloodshed of tens of thousands of Muslims in Jamal, in Nahrawan, in Siffin, right? So how do you have both of these be the case? They said that, okay, let's create a scapegoat, this figure, and we're going to blame everything on him. He's the one who did this, right? Everyone else, they were innocent, right? They were just kind of misled because of this person who really had this in mind. Now, Ibn Taymiyyah, he uses an analogy. Analogy means that he says that there is something in the past that we can look at, and it's the same type of thing that happened in Islam. The example he uses is from Christianity. If you look at the Bible, it's very interesting. In the Bible, the New Testament, okay, which talks about Nabi Isa and Jesus alayhi salam, not all of the Bible talks about Nabi Isa being the Son of God. No. The books that talk about Nabi Isa being, or that seem to say that Nabi Isa is the Son of God, primarily are from the letters of Paul. Okay? But if you look at what the other books of the Bible say, they don't talk about Jesus being the Son of God. They talk about God. And they talk about what Jesus taught about God. So there is a theory, and it's a pretty strong theory, that it was Paul who came and he changed Christianity. And he's the one who took people away from Jesus being a prophet of God, and he made them believe that Jesus, astaghfirullah, was the Son of God. So from inside, he was able to change the religion. So Ibn Taymiyyah says that Abdullah ibn Saba did the same thing with Islam. He pretended to convert to Islam, but his goal was to change Islam from the inside. Now this is not true, right? This is a crafted story, but this has been designed to present Shia Islam as if it's not real Islam. Okay? So one of the ways we can show that he's wrong is that Ibn Taymiyyah contradicts himself. in some of his writings, he says that the reason why there was disagreement about who was the real Khalifa, and why there were some people who were always saying that Imam Ali Islam was the rightful Khalifa, he says that the reason for that is Abdullah ibn Saba. On one hand, he says that that's the reason. But in other places, he says that actually the reason why they say that, there was no such thing. He says no such thing. This idea that there was a group of people like Salman and Miqdad and these really righteous companions, that they preferred Imam Ali Islam over Abu Bakr and Umar, that's false. No, they all got along. Everyone was okay with it. Everyone agreed that the person who was the rightful Khalifa was Abu Bakr and then Umar. The only disagreement happened at the time of Uthman. Sure, at that time, there were some people who said that, actually Uthman shouldn't be the Khalifa, Imam Ali is a better candidate. But there was never any major disagreement or anything like that. That's another way that people like Ibn Taymiyyah explain what happened in history. Now, if you take these things, you say that, well, you know what? Both of these can't be true at the same time. They can't be. You can't both have the case that the early Shias supposedly were okay with, they believed that Abu Bakr and Umar were superior to Imam Islam, and you can't believe that and also believe that Shia Islam was founded by Ibn Saba. Because Ibn Saba was saying that actually, according to them, they say that Ibn Saba was the one who said that Abu Bakr's Khilafah was not legitimate and that Imam Ali Islam was ma'asum and all these things. So he contradicts himself in his own history. That's one thing that we can use to show that this myth is false. Okay? The other thing that we can use to show that it's false is something which is simply looking at what happened according to them, what happened in history. So according to their books, okay, they say that Ibn Taymiyyah says that Imam Ali alayhi salam was very much opposed to anybody who was a Saba'i. Saba'i is somebody who believed in the teachings of Abdullah ibn Saba. What would he do? He would actually burn them. He said that you are heretical, right? How dare you say these things? And he would say your punishment is going to be that I'll burn you. Okay, then they say that he would say that anybody who preferred him over Abu Bakr, Imam Ali Islam would whip him. Right? If somebody came to him and said that you should have been chosen and not Abu Bakr, he would go and he whipped them. That's what they say. They have a hadith in their books. They say that Imam Ali Islam would whip the person who would say that he should be preferred over Abu Bakr. Okay? And then Ibn Taymiyyah also says that, Ibn Saba was the reason why you had the Shia school of thought. And he also says that in Imam Ali's army you had 20,000 Shias. So if you put all this together, it doesn't make sense. Because if Imam Ali alayhi salam, according to them, is either killing or whipping those people who are Shias, right? Then how can his army have 20,000 Shias? So again, it doesn't make sense just purely in terms of math. Okay. Now, I want to make a mention here that this claim that Imam Ali Islam would whip the person who preferred him over Abu Bakr is false. Because if that were the case, astaghfirullah, na'udhu billah, Imam Ali Islam would have to whip Rasulullah himself. Okay? Why would he have to whip Rasulullah? Because Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa was the one who established that the best of the people at that time was Imam Ali alayhi salam, right? Jibra'il would have to be whipped as well. Why would Jibra'il have to be whipped? Because Jibra'il is the one who, on the battle of Khandaq, when Imam Ali alayhi salam defeated Amr ibn Wad, right? He says that the strike of Imam Ali alayhi salam on the day of Khandaq is better than the ibadah of the rest of humanity until the day of judgment, right? So if Jibreel is saying that Imam Ali Islam is better, then he would have to be whipped as well. So of course we know that this is false, this hadith is false. But if we go according to what they're saying, the math is not going to add up either. Okay, so what we can summarize here is that Abdullah ibn Saba was used for propaganda, and it's either the case that he didn't exist at all, or he did exist, but not as somebody who just used to exaggerate about Imam Ali Islam. He would say these fantastical things. He would say, astaghfirullah, na'udhu billah, that Imam Ali is God, right? And of course, if somebody like that is going around and saying that a human being is God, then that person would be punished, because that's heresy. That's like, Islam supports freedom of speech up until a certain point, just like any institution. Even in this country, you can have freedom of speech up to a certain point. Right? So when you start preaching heresy, and you start preaching that shirk, that a human being is God, then of course that person's going to be punished. So that's the most, if such a person actually exists, that's what he used to do. Not that he was the one who also, was the cause of Jamal and Siffin and all the bad things that happened, the civil wars and all those other things as well too. Okay, so having said that, we have 3 minutes left. I want to begin we're still on one more thing here. Okay, this is important. All right. So, in logic, there's something called a post hoc fallacy. What is a post hoc fallacy? I'm going to give you a simple example. The rooster crows always before the sun rises. Therefore, the crowing rooster causes the sun to rise. Okay, you hear the rooster, and then the sun rises. Therefore, the rooster causes the sun to rise. Is that correct logic? Is it? No. What's wrong? What's the fallacy there? What's wrong with that logic? It's the opposite. The sun causes the rooster to crow. The rooster gets awakened by the sun, and that's why the rooster crows. Maybe, but sometimes you hear roosters crow at like 4 a.m. too. I don't know if you. So no, but what's the fallacy in this logic right here? Rooster has no power to cause the sun to rise? Rooster is a weak creature. Okay. So the fallacy is this, that just because you observe certain events happening in a certain order doesn't mean that this is the cause of that event. Right? I mean, there's so many examples of that, right? You can't, it's a correlation, it's not a cause. Okay? So let's say for argument's sake that there was somebody named Abdullah ibn Saba, and Abdullah ibn Saba used to go around and he used to tell people that, Imam Ali Islam was the rightful successor of the Prophet, and he was the ma'asum, and he was the imam, and every prophet needs an imam. Let's say there was somebody like that. Does that mean that he therefore is the reason for why Shia Islam was founded? He's the founder of Shia Islam? No, you can't say that, right? You can't say just because let's say that he existed, because he used to say, therefore he's the founder. No, that's a fallacy. It's a post hoc fallacy. And in fact, in Tabari's own history, he himself mentions other reasons for why Shia Islam is present, including in volume 8 of in volume 6 of his history. So this thing of Ibn Saba is in volume 16. You can get the English translation of it. You can get the PDF online if you want. In volume 6, he talks about the event of Indhar, which I mentioned last week, where Rasulullah called his whole family together, and then he says, who's going to be my helper? And the only one who stands up 3 times is Imam Ali alayhi salam. And then Tabari says that he put his hand on the back of my neck. He's quoting Imam Ali alayhi salam. He said, Rasulullah put his hand on the back of my neck and said, this is my brother, my wakil, and my successor. Right? This is in volume 6. My successor among you, so listen to him and obey him. They rose up laughing and saying to Abu Talib, he has commanded you to listen to your son and to obey him. So you see here that you can't just take, let's say Abdullah ibn Saba actually existed. You can't say that's the reason for why Shiism or Shia Islam actually is there. Okay, and inshallah, with the help of Allah, the next topic we want to cover is, well, what are the origins of Shia Islam? We just learned one of them right now, which is this event right here, but we want to go through with a little bit more detail, inshallah, next time, and look at what are all those origins from Ghadir to other events. We did talk about it a bit last time, but I want to make sure that it's formalized, because that's really important for us to understand exactly why is it that we can call ourselves Shia, and we know this is from Islam, and that's something separate from Islam. True Islam, from our perspective, again, with all respect and all love, and with the sake of unity, true Islam is the Islam that's taught by the Ahlul Bayt alayhim as-salam. Right? That's kind of our viewpoint, and we want to make sure that we know why that's the case. Please recite salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.